We are the first to tell you that living on a tight budget is challenging, but there are some important truths that we have learned.
If you don't know us, I'm Larry.
And I'm Hope.
And this is Under the Median, where practical frugality meets real life.
There are 10 important truths that we learned by living consistently on a tight budget.
Number one, comparison is the thief of joy. You go to a lot of effort to plan your budget, to plan everything that you're doing and to make it work.
Remember that everyone else's circumstances are not the same as your own, and no one else's goals are exactly the same as your own. One of the ways that we learn to kind of deal with this is to keep a running list of ways that we could honestly have fun without spending a lot of money. And then when we went to someone else's house, whether it was a friend or just someone we barely knew, and we saw that brand new matching living room furniture, or we saw their much larger, newer home, we would come home and say, you know what, but we are on our own journey.
Right.
We have a path and we are following it. And how can we have fun within the next week or 2 weeks and we don't have to spend a lot of money doing it? Doing that process was what really helped us to nip that in the bud and stop letting comparison steal our joy.
Number two, prioritizing is a powerful tool. This puts your most important items at the top, so you take care of the things that need to be dealt with first before dealing with other things. And the things that end up toward the bottom of the list, they can be adjusted or moved to a later time if necessary.
Let us give you an example. We have a lot of lists and all of them are prioritized. If you have some financial goals, the most important goals that you need to meet should be at the top of that list. Let's just say even something as simple as a weekly grocery budget. That grocery budget needs to be prioritized. That means the items that you are out of that you desperately need to have in your house go at the top of that grocery list so you know you take care of them first, because you're going to walk through that grocery store with your calculator and slowly add up how much money you'll be spending at the checkout. And you don't want to get all the way through that grocery list to realize that you're not going to be able to buy milk or eggs, which is a distinct possibility these days, right, guys? Or maybe bread or onions or something like celery and carrots. Onions, celery, carrots. I've always said if I have those three things in my house, I can cook pretty much anything. But make sure that those essentials are listed first on that grocery budget. Do you see what we're saying? Prioritize your list, and that way the most important things get taken care of first.
And now if you're ready to prioritize dropping your expenses, grab our free guide to radically reducing your expenses. This will help you get through every little detail in your budget and bring those items down. There'll be a link in the video description.
Truth number 3. Some things are worth paying for. Whenever we talk about this, I always give an example of quality shoes. When I worked outside the home, I knew I was going to be on my feet for 8 hours a day for 5 days a week. I bought one good pair of quality shoes, and I measured the lifespan of those shoes not in months, but in years. They lasted me 6 years before I had to replace them. Now compare that to the fact that I could have bought a lesser quality, less expensive pair of shoes, but those shoes would have been probably replaced every 12 to 18 months. Sometimes it's worth making sure that you spend some money on things that are high quality. Think also in terms of things that you don't want to do without. You need to either have renter's insurance or homeowner's insurance. Don't do without them. If you are driving a car, you need to have car insurance.
Yes.
Here's something else that we think is vitally important for people to invest in, and most people don't even think about it, and that is identity theft protection. This is where we thank our sponsor for this video, Aura. Larry and I, for years, have paid for identity theft protection, and here's why. Our friend Ernestine went to the bank one day to make a withdrawal, and her balance was 0. She went to the teller to only find out that her identity had been stolen, and it just wasn't her bank account that was affected. She spent hours on the phone every day for the next 2 weeks, cleaning up the mess and proving to the people that she had to contact that she was who she said she was. And that's why it's so important that Aura offers what is called white glove service. That means in the worst case scenario, if your identity is stolen, Aura will take care of everything that you need to have happen in order to have your identity restored to you. We had a free trial of Aura, and here's what we found out. About 15 minutes after we signed up for the free trial, Aura sent me an email. My information, my personal email information, including the correct password, had been identified no fewer than 15 times on the dark web. Now, what was scary is that the password was absolutely correct. However, it was an older password that I had changed, so no damage had been done. But what that really showed me was that the threat is real. Now, as alarming as identity theft is, it does make me feel safer knowing that Aura is constantly combing the internet, looking to see if any of my information has been breached. And they're going to let me know right away if that's happened. Now, I mentioned that Aura had found my identity breaches when I signed up for a free trial. And here's where I mentioned that, because you can try Aura for free too. You can get a free 2-week trial of Aura. Use that link right down at the bottom of your screen. It's aura.com/median. You'll also find that link all the way at the top of this video description. It is worth it to have Aura tell you whether any of your data has been breached.
Lesson number 4, treat your budget like a business. You know, businesses have what they call SOP, and that's standard operating procedures. They have an exact plan for how they're going to carry out all of their details so that it works out perfectly, and you need to be able to do the same.
Let us give you a specific example. We use something called SOPs. This is our standard operating procedure for when we have a windfall. Now, windfall is money that you're not expecting to have come in. And what happens if you don't have an SOP written up for windfalls? You're going to get that extra money. Your eyes are going to glaze over and you're going to say, well, let's just go spend this glorious gift from heaven. And pretty soon, before you know it, that windfall, which could have helped you to reach some financial goals, is long gone. And that's why we know for any extra money that comes in, we do it in percentages. A certain percentage of it is going to go toward our financial goals for this year. There are certain things that we are planning to save up money to pay cash for. We have a list of those, and the list is what, guys? It is prioritized. That's right. So we know a certain percentage of it is going to go for that. And then we always set aside, say 20% of it and say, we're going to do something special that we would not normally spend money on, because this is a windfall, right? It's money you did not expect to have come in. It's okay to do that. But what is not okay is to not have a plan for that money.
Lesson number 5. This is a big item. Small purchases add up to big money, and they add up very quickly.
A $5 coffee here, a fast food meal there, even going to, let's say, a rummage sale here and there, even garage sales. I'll tell you how we learned this lesson, because we were trying to save really hard toward a great big goal.
Yeah.
And we added up all the money that we had spent at garage sales.
Oh, boy.
Now, garage sales are fun, and yeah, you can get some really great deals, but it had become our pastime.
Yeah.
It had become like the number one thing on that list we told you about, where you're going to write down things you can do for free or nearly free. The problem was the garage sales, like the only expense was like the gas to go from one house to the other, but it really wasn't free or nearly free because we were blowing an unbelievable amount of money. And it was mostly because we tracked it on stuff we didn't really need. But it seemed easy because it was $2 here, $5 there, $15 there. And all of a sudden we realized we are not reaching this financial goal because we are allowing these little bitty purchases to eat away at it until there's nothing extra to put toward the goal. So you need to look at those small expenses and see how much they're really adding up.
This next lesson is very similar, only in a different light. Small amounts of money coming in can also add up to big amounts. If you take each small amount and apply it towards something, it's going to make a big difference over the long haul.
And here's how we learned that. When we were married in 1988, and 6 months later, actually 3 months later, we were totally broke.
Yeah.
So we did our first budget, and I will never, ever, ever forget the feeling of sitting at the little desk in our little apartment and adding up the expenses and adding up the income and realizing that, wait, we had $25 left over at the end of the month. You would have thought I had won the lottery. Here's why I don't ever want to forget that feeling. Because that was a small amount of money. I mean, let's just face it, $25 really in the whole scheme of life isn't that much. But to us, it was like someone had handed us $250 instead of $25 because we had been consistently overspending what we were making, and we were living paycheck to paycheck and going further and further towards zero every single month. That moment is emblazoned in my mind, and it helps me to remember that small savings added up the following month to $75. Then pretty soon we were saving a couple $100. Then pretty soon we were saving $500.
Yeah.
The small amounts
Made a
of
big
money
difference.
mattered. When we started adding those up pretty soon, we were saving a good share of our income, and we were able to free ourselves from a situation in which we honestly felt stuck. And when we started counting out those small savings, we realized we weren't stuck at all.
Lesson number 7. Delayed gratification is really a good thing. Delayed gratification is when you take a little extra time to make a purchase. You don't just make a purchase right when you think you need it. Take a little extra time, do some more additional research. You might find that item for less cost somewhere else if you take a little bit of time to do that research. You also might find over a period of time you just don't need it because you've done without it this long and you realize you really don't have to have it. It's not a priority.
Lesson number 8. There is always something new to learn. This has been one of the most exciting lessons for us, is realizing that not only do we not know it all, we'll never know it all.
No.
There's always something new that we can learn when it comes to the art of budgeting and finances and saving money and reaching goals. And for us, at some point, that power became really, really powerful to us. The whole concept that, and I mentioned a little while ago, we weren't stuck. It became an understanding that if we came up against, let's say, a rough spot, we thought, we just don't see how we're going to reach this goal, or we don't see how we're going to lower this bill. Knowing that we had learned the art of really looking for information, looking for new ways to save, looking for different ways to think outside the box, different ways of doing things. That helped us immeasurably in moving forward, even when there were times where we thought we really couldn't.
There's so many good sources for learning. There's your library, there's lots of books, there's videos online. There's really some great resources that we can all tie into and gain more experience in our frugal lifestyle.
Which leads us nicely into lesson number 9, and that is that a tight budget can spark creativity instead of stress. It is incredibly stressful to feel like you're spending every single penny just trying to make ends meet. There is a degree of creativity here. There's a point at which I realize that I'm not a person who needs to meet everybody else's expectations, and it's okay if I don't. And to realize that you have the power to make changes, that you have the power to spend less, and it is an incredibly empowering thing, and it sparks that creativity to look at each other and say, I wonder if we can do even better next month. I wonder if we can drop that bill even further. What do you think we can do together? How can we work together to make this happen? There is a creativity that happens
yes.
with frugality that does not tend to happen outside of frugality, and that need to drop that tight budget and cut it even further.
Lesson number 10 is you can still set goals and reach them. Even though you're living on a tight budget, it doesn't mean that you can't reach goals. It means that you have a better chance at reaching them because your money is being very specifically divided up and you're saving money. And that money that you're saving is what you apply towards those goals.
Now, all of these tips really do point toward one solid truth. And that is that this all comes about, it all happens because of frugal habits. Frugality and cutting that tight budget happens through habits that are repeated over and over and over again. But there's a core set of those habits that will consistently help you to lower your budget and to spend less and save more every month. If you're curious about what some of those core frugal habits are, there's a video right over there.